You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
You're listening to No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Radio Network, your home for in-depth and thoughtful Packers analysis. I'm your host, Gil Martin. My co-host is my good friend, Sean Tehan. And in addition to this show, I write for the PackersPost.com and Cheesehead TV. Sean was a TV sportscaster in Minnesota. We're here to talk Packers because you're all here for one thing, and that's a love for Green Bay football. And Sean, March Madness still going strong. Packers draft hosting, getting a little closer. Season getting a little closer. But before we get back to our brackets, how about a word from our sponsor?
Yeah, March Madness, it's kind of a sad time here in the state of Wisconsin. Marquette just went down over the weekend. The Wisconsin Badgers just went down. But Ticket King, we're here for you. Our show is sponsored again by Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, they've been providing Packers tickets to Packer fans, as well as Bucks, Brewers, and Summerfest tickets. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. That's theticketking.com. The link is right there on your screen if you're following with us on YouTube or on Facebook. If you're watching with us, if you're listening to us, thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And remember to support local Wisconsin businesses. And you can watch every episode of No Huddle Radio on Packers Talk Network with Gil and myself on YouTube. Click on the bell. Turn the notifications on. You can join the discussion, chat with us live. Love to see them and talk about the comments coming our way. And Gil, this month it's we're in the dead period of the NFL offseason where, you know, we're past the rush of free agency. We're getting ready for the NFL draft coming up, still about a month away. And it's March Madness right now, though. So we got to kind of meld the two favorite things this time of year. The Packers, which is one of our favorite things of the entire year, and March Madness in general with some more Packers bracketology. We're doing the greatest moments since 1970. We went through the first round of the previous episode, had some upsets, some major upsets in terms of seeding, but now we move on, and Gil, I have a prediction for where I think what the championship match is going to be, and what I think the winner is going to be. But it's all up to you. And brackets tend to get busted this time of year, so I'm curious to see where we go. So we're on to the quarterfinals, and let's start out with the 9 versus 1 matchup, the instant replay, the number 9 seed versus the number 1 seed, the Favre dad game. In case you need a refresher, the last time we were on. Number 1 seed Favre's dad game defeated 16 seed Bart Starr's first head coaching win at Dallas. And the instant replay, the 9 seed defeated the 8 seed, the Monday Night Miracle, just by a hair, by our standards, just by a hair. Now we have this matchup, Gil, where the instant replay, this is before Favre's time, and then Favre's dad game, obviously, during Favre's time. Breaking this down and everything, we can go through the refreshers of what these moments were, but what do you like about this matchup, and who's moving forward in this matchup to the semis?
You got two classic moments. I mean, at the time, that instant replay game meant so much. When you lost 8 straight games to the Bears, and then you beat them, and you beat them at Lambeau in the last 30 seconds with a dramatic touchdown that is overturned and then reinstated. It doesn't get too much more dramatic than that. But the Favre's dad game, Monday Night Football, when Raiders fans in the black hole are rooting for the other quarterback, you've got a rare and special moment. I love both of these moments. I mean, these are two special times to be a Packer fan, but I got to go with the Favre's dad game at this point.
Hey, the number 1 seed still holding strong, Favre's dad game. And I do remember that. And I said last time, too, where I was a big Packer fan. I had the Packer room decorations. My walls were alternating green and gold in my bedroom growing up. I met Reggie White when I was 6 years old. I didn't really know who he was, but he's a big guy. He was a terrific human being, just a really nice guy. Somehow I got to meet him, and it was just me, a buddy of mine in kindergarten, and his mom, and she got us access to go meet Reggie White. It was just the 3 of us, I remember. Or just the 4 of us, and 3 of us really talking and taking pictures with one another. But that Favre dad game was the game that, again, it's like I became a true diehard. I knew I was a diehard Packer fan for life because that game was more than just football. It was everything I loved. It's like, I love this team. I loved Brett Favre. Brett Favre was a big reason why I love football. He's a big reason why I love the Green Bay Packers. But it's funny with the instant replay game, though, where it just had to be so dramatic. And it's kind of crazy where they were still trying to get the mechanics and the logistics of the instant replay process done, because the Bears, remember, were out there ready to take a knee, and then the refs like, hold on, we're going to look at that last play.
Yeah,
that wouldn't happen in today's NFL. They would immediately blow it dead, and they would look it over right then and there. But it was kind of crazy. I mean, what do you remember from watching that instant replay game? Because I wasn't around when the instant replay happened, and
you got to remember also,
it had to be so stressful and long.
Yeah, I mean, instant replay was new then. Yeah. It was a new thing. And like you said, they were still trying to kind of work the kinks out and figure out the best way to do it. And, eventually they took it away and then they brought it back and they did it better the second time around. Yeah. But, at that point, I believe the Packers entered the game at 5-4. And, to come that close to beating the Bears, which was the Mike Ditka era Bears, who you just didn't beat them. I mean, 8 straight losses to the Bears, both in Green Bay and Milwaukee and, in Soldier Field. And to come that close, and then it was like the emotional roller coaster of, yes, we did it. Oh, it doesn't count. Oh, it counts. I mean, just in that 5 minutes between, the play, the penalty call, the overturning of it, it was absolutely insane. And at that point in 1989, it had been a long time since the Packers were considered contenders. They hadn't been in the playoffs in a non-strike year in more than 20 years at that point. 17 years, excuse me, at that point. So it was such a magic moment at the time. And, the fact that the Bears put a little asterisk in their media guide and kept it there for years and years and years. Anything that gets under the Bears organization skin is definitely worth a memorable moment for Packer fans. So I got to give the edge to the Favre's dad game, but that instant replay game was special. And it was a great Don Majkowski / Sterling Sharp moment as well.
It's so amazing that there have been so many Packer Bears big moments alone in that series. And I feel like over time, people have still forgotten about they've forgotten about the instant replay game a little bit, but you bring it up, it's like, oh yeah, like anyone who was around then, they remember that,
Yeah.
So, but Favre's dad game, yeah, I got to stay up late for that game. I thank my parents for that, because they were just like, yeah, this is a game we'll let our kids stay up on a school night for, And I was very sleepy the next day. I do remember that, but number 1 seed Favre's dad game moving on, and they will face the winner of the 13th seed. We want the ball, and we're going to score versus the 5 seed Motown Miracle. Last time we were on, the Motown Miracle, the 5 seed defeated the 12 seed Walter Stanley, the Turkey Day hero, the Thanksgiving near walk-off win for the Packers over the Lions. And then we want the ball. We're going to score, upset the 4th seeded Tramon Williams, silencing the ATL with his pick 6 right before halftime of the 2010 NFC divisional game that really put that game on ice and helped the Packers get to the NFC Championship and then eventually become Super Bowl champions. But now we got an intriguing matchup here, Gil. 13 seed, we want the ball and we're going to score. The Packers' big playoff opening win against the Seattle Seahawks. Matt Hasselbeck, the former Packer quarterback, famously said, we want the ball, we're going to score. He ended up throwing a pick 6, and the Packers end up walking off with a win at Lambeau Field against the 5 seed Motown Miracle, which didn't happen in the playoffs. But it's one of those moments where I feel like a lot of Packer fans, if you're at least 16 years of age and you're a Packer fan, you probably remember this moment. So this is a bit of an intriguing matchup. This is the 13th seed. We want the ball. We're going to score guy here for a reason. Do they take down the 5 seed Motown Miracle?
I think it does. I think it does. Because it was a playoff game and it was a walk-off pick 6 as well. So that ends the playoff game. You advance to the next round. If the Motown Miracle would have occurred in a winning playoff game, I probably would give it the edge. But I think the stakes were higher for Al Harris and his pick 6 to win the game. And just even that poetic justice where Matt Hasselbeck was so cocky. And here he is against his former team at Lambeau Field. Mm-hmm. And just to have Al Harris step in front of him and pick off that pass and run it back for the winning score, I got to give the edge to the playoff pick 6, the walk-off playoff pick 6.
My bracket's officially busted because I thought the Motown Miracle was going to be the winner in this bracket. But
Wow.
It goes to show, like, Gil, you never know what's going to happen in March Madness. You never know what's going to happen in Packers bracketology, the tournament of the greatest Packer moments since 1970. And you mentioned we talked about Matt Hasselbeck was a backup to Brett Favre in the 90s. And then Mike Holmgren was the head coach on the other side. There were so many Packer ties in Seattle. There still are a good amount of Packer ties in Seattle, just with the John Schneider connection as the GM in Seattle. But it was a big moment. And I believe that preceded, that was 4th and 26 the next week. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was 4th and 26 the next week. A game they should have won 10 times over.
And that's just something where it's, that was a great moment for the Packers at Lambeau Field, the walk-off win like that in dramatic fashion. But it was soured very quickly a week later. And I do remember, that next week after that game more than I remember where we want the ball and we're going to score. I just remember the call. I don't really remember the nitty-gritty details like I usually do. But, yeah, I get it. It's that Motown Miracle. I swear I've watched that video, that clip, probably 4,000 times.
Oh yeah.
Because it was so good, and you see it and I think the beauty with the Motown Miracle, and we could have had this with we want the ball, we're going to score if it was 10 years later, where you had people with their cell phone videos all throughout the stadium who were there, and all these different angles, and you see how far that throw from Rodgers got in the air.
Almost hit the roof.
What's that?
It almost hit the roof.
Yeah, it was
scoreboard. It was like, yeah.
And it was angled so perfectly. It was just like a perfect rainbow right into the hands of Richard Rodgers. But yeah, I mean, I think if we saw this matchup on the hardwood or on the football field, I think this would be a very, very close game. But Gil, you're the master of all. So we're going to say we want the ball. We're going to score. The 13th seed is moving on against the number 1 seed Favre's dad game. But before we get to that one, we got to wrap up the quarterfinals and to the next matchup, the 11th seed. Favre and Sharp tamed the Lions versus the 3 seed Raji pick 6. Now, to get to this matchup last week, the 11th seeded Favre and Sharp tamed the Lions, upset the 6th seed Rodgers and Cook shocked Dallas. The Raji pick 6, the 3 seed, they held firm, they held suit. They defeated the 14th seed Rodgers and Cobb break Chicago's heart. It's funny. It's like a lot of this. There's a lot of Aaron Rodgers, a lot of Brett Favre. It's a common theme here with the greatest moments since 1970. But this is an intriguing matchup because obviously, Favre and Sharp taming the Lions in the 1994 NFC divisional game. The touchdown pass in the final minute to seal that win, first playoff win for the Packers in 11 years. But the Raji pick 6 proved to be the difference in the 2010 NFC Championship game to help the Packers get to Super Bowl 45 and eventually become Super Bowl 45 champs. This is a good matchup, Gil. Who do we got moving on?
This is a great matchup, and you look at the impact of both of them. I mean, the Favre and Sharp tamed the Lions. That's the first playoff win in the Mike Holmgren, Ron Wolf, Brett Favre, Reggie White era.
It started that era.
Yeah, it started that era in a lot of ways. So very impactful there. But the Raji pick 6 gets you to a Super Bowl that you eventually win. It directly gets you there. And how many times does a 330, 340-pound defensive nose tackle run back an interception for a touchdown? So because of the stakes, because of the moment, because of the form that BJ Raji showed in running it back and almost screwing it up too, I got to go with the 3 seed and the Raji pick 6.
Yeah, that just makes total sense to me right there, Gil. It was, I do remember, and Raji had that dance in the end zone and got him into State Farm commercials with Aaron Rodgers when it's like, show me what you got, Raji, show me what you got. And I'll never forget that year. So I went to University of Wisconsin Whitewater. Whitewater is very close to the Illinois border. A lot of Bears fans there. A lot of people from Illinois who go to Whitewater, and a lot of Packer fans there too. And I remember earlier that season, and the Packers that whole Super Bowl season when they won Super Bowl 45, they didn't trail by more than 7 points that entire season. You just knew they were there, and you knew if they got in the playoffs, they were going to be dangerous. You just had that feeling. And I remember they lost on Monday Night Football earlier that season at Chicago, and you hear the Bears fans all throughout campus just chirping and yelling and everything like that. My buddy and I went to the finale, the Week 17 final game, Packers-Bears at Lambeau Field, because we knew if the Packers were getting in, they weren't going to play a home game. They were going to be the 6th seed and everything like that. Nick Collins had the pick 6 to seal the deal to get them in the playoffs. And, and my buddy and I were screaming, Super Bowl, here we come, like at the top of the stadium. We just had a feeling And then the Raji pick six, I watched that with my buddies, my Packer buddies in Whitewater. And when that happened, we were dancing. We were going crazy. But then obviously the Bears made it a little interesting. The Packers made us a little nervous. But it was one of the happiest feelings I ever had. BJ Raji pick six has a special memory in my mind. And he's always going to be near and dear to my heart, man. That guy was awesome. He made the biggest play in the biggest moment and helped the Packers get another their 13th NFL championship.
Do you know if he's in the Packers Hall of Fame?
I don't think so. And
I don't either.
I don't know if he will be because that was his best season that second year.
Yeah.
And then he kind of tapered off and he retired early.
Yes. He didn't last very long.
No. And that's the thing is it's funny because he was the 9th overall pick and Clay Matthews was a first round pick in the same draft. They traded up for Clay Matthews famously. But no one says BJ Raji was a bust. He just kind of got hit with the injury bug. He kind of had some bad luck. But BJ Raji was a stud. He was a really good player. I remember Colin Jenkins leaving, I think, had a huge impact on him when they lost him in free agency. But, yeah, BJ Raji, man, like that guy, maybe he's probably going to go off and win. The Raji pick six probably going to win this, but I don't know. We'll see, Gil. You like to go against the grain in terms of my thinking of your thinking, but who knows? So, anyways, Raji, the pick six, the 3 seed, will face off the winner of the 15 seed. God calls Reggie to Green Bay versus the 7 seed. Brett Favre arrives. Now, last week to get to this moment, the 7 seed, Brett Favre arrives to feed the 10 seed, the first Lambeau Leap. The first Lambeau Leap clearly was seeded a little bit too high. I think they feasted off of a weak schedule, feasted off of weak competition to get that 10 seed. God calls Reggie to Green Bay. They upset the 2 seed, Nick Collins, super pick six to get to this point. Gil, 2 monumental moments in our lifetimes in Green Bay Packers history. Reggie White going to Green Bay, Brett Favre's big comeback win in his first major minutes in a Packer uniform. Who moves on?
This has got to be, I think, the toughest one.
Yeah.
Because these are both moments where everything changed for the Packers franchise. And one guy changed it for the offense and one guy changed it for the defense. Mm-hmm. And, it is like the Packers do not win a Super Bowl or become a consistent winner without either of these. Like both of them had to happen for this to work.
I agree.
I am going to go with the upset though, because of the off the field implications of the Reggie White signing. The fact that it allowed the Packers, surprising everybody, that the smallest market in the NFL signed the biggest free agent in the very first real free agent class, the impact it had for the future signing of African-American players, and the way it changed the culture in and around the Packers organization. So for that reason, I give a very, very slight edge to Reggie White signing with the Packers.
Yeah, this is I feel like whoever wins what was you were gonna pick to win this may have a chance to at least go to the championship in this Packers bracketology and possibly win it, because they, like you said, if they only get Reggie White, the championships probably don't happen after that. If they only get Brett Favre, it's probably not as great of a future. It's just you needed both these guys, and then it was just the amount of pieces that needed to work together. We're hiring Ron Wolf. He was the right guy to put in charge of the personnel. And then having Mike Holmgren as the head coach and being able to really develop Brett Favre into the Hall of Fame quarterback that he became. It's just there was so much that went into it. But, yeah, Reggie White coming to Green Bay, you just wonder with that. The butterfly effect is pretty significant because does Charles Woodson ever go to Green Bay if Reggie White doesn't go to Green Bay?
No.
And Charles Woodson, I know he was kind of on the way out of the league. Nobody really wanted him, and he just went to Green Bay because that was the only team that wanted him. And then
he was reluctant.
And he became a Hall of Famer because of his time with the Green Bay Packers. So
correct.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation, but yeah, you can't go wrong here, in my opinion. It's just someone had to go down though.
Yeah, somebody did. Now here's the weird thing about it though. Reggie White does not sign with Green Bay if not for a 1992 Packers-Eagles game where Favre got hurt. I think he broke ribs, came back out, finished the game, and the Packers beat the Eagles like 27-23, I'm saying off the top of my head. But Reggie White saw how gutsy and talented Favre was, and when he became a free agent, that was part of his consideration for signing with Green Bay, that he knew Favre was there. He saw what kind of a football player he was, and he saw a great future in Green Bay because of Favre. So, without the Favre arrives, the Reggie signing probably doesn't happen. But I still think the long-term impact of that Reggie White signing, I have to give it the edge.
Still one of my favorite stories, and I think I've said it to you, Gil, on this podcast before, is hearing Ron Wolf and Bob Harlan speak. I heard them speak about 10 years ago. Two terrific guys, where if you have a chance to go listen to them talk in like an open forum or anything like that, you should go, because they may be only scheduled to talk for so long. They'll talk beyond that, and they're literally guys that you could go to a bar with them and talk with them all damn day. They're those kind of people. They're unbelievable. And Ron Wolf and Bob Harlan talked about the recruitment of Reggie White, where they took him to the night, but he had that big publicized tour and everything like that. Reggie White was in Atlanta the night before. I think it was Atlanta before Green Bay. And Ron Wolf said, yeah, they took him to like one of the nicest restaurants in the entire country. They really wooed him. And then he comes to Green Bay and we take him to Red Lobster. And Reggie's just like, can I get my catfish fillet? And Ron Wolf's like, yeah, you can get whatever you want. But the thing is, they had their big meeting with Reggie White in a Red Lobster while eating Cheddar Bay biscuits or whatever they had back in the early 90s. And the big thing that swayed them, in their opinion, was they said, yeah, you go back to Philly, you go to Atlanta, you go elsewhere, you'll be great, but you come to Green Bay and you win in Green Bay, you will be a legend in Green Bay. And he was, and he got his jersey number retired in Philly, in Green Bay with the Tennessee Volunteers. That says a lot. He was literally one of the pillars when it came to the NFL of all-time great players. And just the Packers being able to get him is pretty amazing. Even looking back today.
Yeah, it was even more amazing in 1993 when it happened, because nobody expected it. And I guarantee you no one will ever wear 92 for the Memphis Showboats either anymore. But
they shouldn't, and they should. Yeah, I think that's the only thing that bothers me about Reggie White's career is, like, if he spent those 2 years in the NFL instead of those 2 years in the USFL with the Memphis Showboats, he would have had an untouchable all-time sack.
Oh yeah.
But nobody would have even come close. He would have had probably 215, 210, 220 sacks.
Yeah.
No one would have come close, and it would have been great. But we move on to the Final Four. This is what you pay the big bucks for. It's the Final Four, and the number 1 seed, Favre's dad game, still holding strong, facing off against the 13 seed. We want the ball, and we're going to score. It's kind of funny. The Brett Favre Packers in both these situations, but the other situation, the 13 seed, involving a former Brett Favre backup and Brett Favre's former head coach in Green Bay, Mike Holmgren. A lot of Packer ties with this one. Who moves on to the championship?
Got to go with the dad game. It was just such a unique moment. It's number 1 seed for a reason. Anybody who saw it, you didn't even need to be a Packer fan. You just needed to be a human being. And if you saw, you don't even need to be a football fan. If you saw that moment, it was something that I think almost everybody could relate to in some way, shape, or form. And it went beyond football. And it's going to be tough to beat.
Yeah. And they will face the winner in the championship between the 3 seed Raji Pick 6 and the 15 seed God Calls Reggie to Green Bay. Again, I have a feeling we're going to see another upset here, Gil, but Raji's Pick 6, I mean, that Pick 6 put the Packers up 21-7 in the NFC Championship. Chicago made 21-14 late in the game, and that Pick 6 proved to be the difference because the offense didn't score 1 touchdown that entire second half after Jay Cutler went down, after their second-string quarterback. I can't remember who their second-string quarterback was in Chicago.
Caleb Haney.
No, well, Caleb Haney was third string.
Third string, right.
He was third string, but there was another quarter. I think it was Todd Collins.
Yeah.
Todd Collins was second string, and he even got injured, and he had to leave the game. And Raji doesn't have that Pick 6. That game probably goes to overtime, and you don't know what happens in overtime. But then God Calls Reggie to Green Bay. We may not be sitting here talking right now about the Green Bay Packers. Mm-hmm. Who moves on to the championship?
I got to go with Reggie. I got to go with Reggie. It's both very magic moments, but you know what? I don't know if BJ Raji gets to make that interception if it wasn't for the Reggie White play. It was such a foundational moment for the organization.
So now we have it. The championship matchup. 2025 Packers Bracketology, greatest moment since 1970. The 1 seed holding strong, Favre's dad game, versus the 15 seed, the underdog everyone's pulling for, the 15 seed, God calls Reggie to Green Bay. This is history versus pure emotions and human form. Gil, whoever loses, you can't fault them. You can't fault them. It's just this is the matchup that I feel like that needed to happen. But who moves on? Who wins the championship for 2025 Packers Bracketology, greatest moment since 1970? The Favre dad game, the 1 seed, or the 15 seed? God calls Reggie to Green Bay.
All right, I have my answer in my head. I have it down. I want to hear who you would pick at this point first.
Man,
not going to change my answer.
So my original prediction, I thought we were going to have the Motown Miracle in the championship against possibly God calls Reggie to Green Bay.
Okay.
And now, and I thought the Motown Miracle was going to win. I thought because it was just one of those epic moments that it's going to be hard to forget. But now you're just convincing me, Gil, where it's like God calls Reggie to Green Bay really started everything. Like the golden era, the last 30 years that we've had a Packer football where we've been so fortunate where missing the playoffs is not tolerated in Green Bay. And Reggie White kind of started that. And that era kind of started that. But the Favre dad game, it's a matter of like, it's so close to your heart because it's a matter of, we've all been there. We've all lost family members who are so important to us and people who are so important to us. And then you love those stories about the athletes who go out there and they're so emotional because they're playing with such heavy hearts and then they have the game of their lives. And it's the greatest human form you could see. It's the greatest human emotion you could see. And you can't help but think of it. I mean, even playing football, it's like, my brother and I had initials of, relatives who passed away too soon on our cleats, written on our cleats. It's family and football. It's like what Vince Lombardi said, God, family, and football. And the Favre dad game was that, it really was that. But God calling Reggie to Green Bay also wouldn't happen. The Favre dad game wouldn't happen without that. So, man, I would say God calls Reggie to Green Bay, though, because, again, like your train of thought, your argument has been it's what started everything. And I have to agree with you on that. So I think you're picking that, but we'll see.
You are right. I am picking that. And it's hard because it's like it's one very emotional game. And like my heart goes with the Favre's dad game, but my head goes with God calls Reggie to Green Bay. It's two contradictory things. But I think the impact of God calls Reggie to Green Bay was just so enormous that I have to give it a slight edge. Now, if you wanted to have, most emotional game as a category, the Favre dad's game, I don't even know if there'd be even a close second, even though there were some other emotional moments. But I got to go with God calls Reggie to Green Bay.
There you have it. Gil's greatest Packers moment since 1970. The 15 seed God calls Reggie to Green Bay. Massive upset. The committee, me being the committee, screwed up the seedings badly. The Ken Palm scores. The quad 1, quad 2 stuff goes out the window because God calls Reggie to Green Bay, defied all the odds, and moved on and won the championship. 2025, greatest Packers moment since 1970. And it's hard for me to argue. I wish, and I think I honestly think when I was seeding this initially, Gil, I think I had this as high as like a 4 seed. But then I just kept moving it down. And I don't know why. It's just a matter of like, because you're thinking of all these other moments. It's like these top 16 moments that we went through. These are all very huge moments. It's moments that we can remember where it's like, oh, yeah, like unbelievable moment. One of my favorite moments as a Packer fan ever. And so there was really no bad moments here, but it's just a matter of like this one was just the overwhelming favorite in the end.
And, we could probably do another bracket of all the upsetting moments since 1972.
Yeah.
Worst moments, which would be a lot more 70s and 80s stuff than anything else.
Yeah,
but
one day if we're feeling really down, maybe just to get it all out on the table, Gil. But I don't even know if I want to go there because Fail Mary would be number one for sure, and it'd be hard to beat that in my opinion. But I don't know. 2014 NFC Championship was
there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them.
Go on and on, but I will ask you this because again, this is the greatest Packers moment since 1970. If we had the 60s included. The Ice Bowl, the
quarterback sneak. Yep.
Would that have beaten God calls Reggie to Green Bay?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I think that may be it's certainly the most memorable play in Packers history. The significance of it, it still hasn't been replicated. No one's won 3 straight championships in the NFL since then. Chiefs came close this year, although they got blown out in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But the way that it was done, the conditions it was done in, the way even I have to add the way Jerry Kramer memorialized it in his books and in his speeches in the years afterwards. The fact that some of those guys had frostbite, affecting them for the rest of their lives, that it's Vince Lombardi's last game in Green Bay, the record temperatures, so many things that make that, to me, the ultimate moment. And it's certainly the most memorable play in Packers history, I think, and probably top 3, if not, maybe the Immaculate Reception would be in the running. But some people would say it's the best moment in NFL history, but it's got to be top 3. Even Packer haters would put it top 5. So
it's a moment that's kind of started the glory of the NFL. Like, it started all, like, in terms of the glory and everything, and just how strong of a league it became and how strong of a sport it became. But I do love where that play also, it's something that kind of gets lost in the weeds, where that Bart Starr sneak. And it's like, if we were going pre-1970, this would have been the 1 seed. This probably would have won it all, like Gil said. But that sneak by Bart Starr, though, that was a perfect example. Jimmy's and Joe's, not X's and O's, because that was supposed to be a handoff. And he saw where it's like he had an opening, and he plunged through, and he made it happen. And that's a Jimmy and Joe play where that's Bart Starr saying, I'm going to win the game right here. I can win the game right here, instead of handing off. I mean, you saw Chuck Mersin, literally, he was plunging forward because he thought he was getting the ball. It's just, and it just didn't happen that way, because Bart Starr knew, it's like, I'm going to win the game right here.
And to take it a step further, if you look at the replay, Mersin always has his hands up in the air. That wasn't to signal touchdown. That was to signal, I'm not pushing him over the end zone. I did not have anything to do with this, because that was illegal back then. And of course, the Packers are trying to make it illegal again with the tush push. So I had to just sort of come full circle and put that in. And then think about this. You think about the Packers dynasty. You think about Bart Starr and Willie Davis and Herb Adderley and Jim Taylor and Paul Hornung. But how many people think about Donnie Anderson and Chuck Mersin, who both had so much to do with that game-winning drive?
Hey, with Chuck Mersin, too, with the hands up. You may see that more if the tush push ends up getting banned in a few weeks. So obviously we'll be here on the airwaves quite a bit throughout the offseason. The owners meetings are coming up. We could see some new rule changes and everything like that. A lot of endless Packers content, not only on here on the No Huddle Network with Gil and myself, but on Packers Talk Network on No Huddle Radio, but PackersPost.com, CheeseheadTV.com. Gil's got endless content there. Go click on his stuff. Go read it. It's good. You'll be better off for it. You'll be on top of the Packers more than Gil and I will be. And I don't know if that's even possible, but Gil will get you there. Gil, you ready for some trivia before we wrap up?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, sounds good. We just wrapped up our bracketology for the greatest moments in our lifetimes as Packer fans. Brett Favre obviously came up quite a bit. He was obviously in the championship matchup. A moment which didn't make the list and the cut for Packers bracketology was when Brett Favre made a cameo appearance in the hit comedy There's Something About Mary. As Favre, like practically every other male character in the film, was in love with Cameron Diaz's character Mary. Now, Gil, when asked by Matt Dillon's character Healy what Brett was doing in town in the movie There's Something About Mary, which NFL team was Brett Favre in town to play against? And looking at your grin, I know you know the answer right away.
Boy, I think it was Miami, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie?
I have seen the movie, yeah.
Okay, yeah. The Miami Dolphins. So most of the movie takes place in Miami. So when Favre appeared and was asked what he was doing in town, he bluntly told Healy, who was the private investigator. And if you haven't seen this movie, for those listening and watching, go watch it. It's one of the greatest comedies you'll ever see. And he bluntly told Healy, this is made up by Favre himself, I'm in town to play the Dolphins, you dumbass. And we're past the statute of limitations. So I'll spoil the end. Mary ended up picking Ben Stiller's character, Ted, over Favre and many others to be her man. And a fun fact, according to IMDb, Steve Young was actually the original choice to make the cameo in the movie instead of Favre, but Young declined to be a part of the movie due to religious reasons and the nature of the movie. And in the movie, Mary even mentions at the end to Ted that she wanted to be with him even over Brett Favre, saying, by the way, I'm a 49ers fan. Drew Bledsoe, he was also reportedly offered the cameo role as well before Favre. And Favre's scene in the movie, it was filmed 2 weeks after the Packers lost in Super Bowl 32 against the Broncos. So bit of a sour memory a couple weeks before that, but an absolutely hilarious scene. I do love the little detail that Bledsoe says, like, I can't believe you picked him over. You didn't pick Brett Favre, and Ben Stiller's on record saying, like, I know sports. I know his last name's Favre, but the directors thought it'd be funny, which it was. Brett Favre's acting wasn't very good, but
it was terrible.
Absolutely hilarious movie.
Yes. I mean, thankfully it is a cameo, and even his bad acting could not ruin it. So yeah,
I do love knowing that he's the one who had the idea of, like, I'm in town to play the Dolphins. Dumbass.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Yeah.
And I love it too when it's just when Chris Elliott's character, Dom Uganowski, who, again, if you haven't seen it, please go watch it. I don't know why you're still listening to us. Please go watch that movie. I'm promoting it like crazy. But when Chris Elliott's holding all those shoes, he's just like, oh, come on, this isn't fair. Brett Favre, all these men vying for Mary. It's like, and a 3-time MVP quarterback comes walking in the door saying, I love you, Mary.
It's a classic. It is a classic moment. You don't even have to be a Packers fan to enjoy that movie.
Yep, absolutely. So, yeah, Endless Packers Talk. Click on that bell on YouTube. Turn the notifications on. PackersPost.com, CheeseheadTV.com. Gil and I got you covered. Draft shortly away, but hey, short few weeks away. It's going to come up in a hurry, and we're here with you through the whole offseason as we wait for another Packers season.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And Sean, always a pleasure, man. This was fun. I enjoyed the bracketology very, very much.
Yeah, of course you picked the upsets. Why even bother with the seeding? I should have just blindly just put matchups in there. Why do I even bother? It's like, yeah, a lot of people lost money on this bracket.
Oh yeah.
So it's like everyone's just like, oh man,
every Vegas sports book had odds,
I'm telling you, the guy who put in a lot of money on the 15th seed, the minus 1,000 or whatever the odds were for Reggie White, God calling Reggie White to Green Bay. You're a rich man, and you're welcome. And
cleaned up. That's right. That's right. I get my cut in the mail.
You better get some royalties. I hope so.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for us today. We'll be right back here next week. Follow us on Twitter at Bill Packers and at GBPackersOn. Stay up to date on all things Packers, or to ask us questions. Or you could email us at gbpackerssean@gmail.com. Make sure you're subscribed to Packers Talk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Big thanks to PackersTalk.com for powering our show, and thank you for listening. Until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.